It even got mainstream attention, with outlets like Bloomberg speaking to sources who backed up the reason behind Dr. Disrespect's ban, and all of it actually leading to Doc responding again this afternoon, saying, let's cut the fucking bullshit. Everyone has been wanting to know why I was banned from Twitch, but for reasons outside of my control, I was not allowed to say anything for the last several years. Now that two former Twitch employees have publicly disclosed the accusations, I can now tell you my side of the story regarding the ban. Were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. Were there real intentions behind these messages? The answer is absolutely not. Also, I'll say a note here because there's been a lot of discourse about this as well. He edited that tweet to instead say individual minor to just individual, but he then later changed it back to individual minor. But then in the rest of his statement, he went on to call the conversations mutual and casual, saying they, quote, sometimes lean too much in the direction of being inappropriate, but nothing more, claiming nothing illegal happened, no pictures were sent, he never met them, there was a lengthy arbitration, but no criminal case was filed. And with that, saying he took moral responsibility and should have known better as an adult, but adding, now with all this said, don't get it fucking mistaken. I've seen all the remarks and labels being thrown around so loosely. Social media is a destruction zone. I'm no fucking predator or pedophile. Are you kidding me? Anyone that truly knows me fucking knows where I stand on those things with those types of people. Fuck that. And all of that has resulted in an explosion of responses, right? Some fans saying they stand with him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, there was a lot of attention to him editing in and out minor. Meanwhile, Robert Bowling, aka 402, right, the Midnight Society studio head, he tweeted, this is a statement for me personally. It does not reflect any of my companies and has not gone through any legal or PR approvals. If you inappropriately message a minor, I cannot work with you. Period. I promised to only act on facts, and I did. And of course, there's been no shortage of other commenters chiming in. Zon Piker saying he Dr. disrespected the age of consent, and Moist Critical responding, that's actually shocking. Confirming messaging a minor inappropriately, but saying there wasn't any real intent is almost verbatim what people used to say to Chris Hansen. As well as another aspect we're already seeing are more people cutting ties. With, for example, Turtle Beach now appearing to have removed all of Dr. Disrespect's merchandise from their site, including from their partners section. And seemingly all previous links to Dr. Disrespect products now take you directly to the homepage of Turtle Beach. But like I said earlier, who knows if even more is coming. We're waiting to see. And of course, in the meantime, I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts with all this? And while you leave that comment or you're sitting back trying to take in everything we just talked about, I gotta say, hey, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. And today, we got a lot to talk about. This has been a busy week so far. I'm gonna try to make it consumable for you. So you sit back, maybe hit that like button, otherwise we'll punch you in the throat, and let's jump into it.
This is a news show.
It actually happened. I never knew if this day was gonna come. After nearly 12 years on the run, after so many legal battles, Julian Assange is free. With the founder of WikiLeaks making a deal with US authorities and flying to a US courthouse in Saipan for the final steps. With it notably being one of the most remote US courthouses in the Northern Mariana Islands, which is close to Australia and also isn't in the continental US, which Assange doesn't want to risk going to. Right in there, Assange will be pleading guilty to a single felony count of illegally obtaining and disclosing national security material, which is far less than the 18 counts a grand jury originally slapped him with. And barring the judge there deciding to ignore the plea deal, which is very rare, he'll be sentenced to 5 years, which is about the same amount of time that he served in a British prison while he was fighting an extradition to the US, which means that he'll be credited with time served and set free. Right, and while a lot of this may come as a surprise to kind of everyday people, we've kind of had hints that this could be the conclusion for a while now. Right, earlier this year, the Australian government said the case needed to be concluded, the Biden administration saying it was open to a quick resolution, with that then apparently kicking off negotiations for a plea deal. And considering Assange had already spent more time in prison than most people who were convicted of a similar offense do, it seemed pretty obvious to just let him go. Right? And also keep in mind, that's just time officially in a prison, right? Because before that, he was effectively locked in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years. You know, with this, overall, the Australian government's very happy with the news. With Prime Minister Anthony Albanese tweeting,
"The case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia."
And that is apparently the plan. After the hearing, he's set to go to Australia. Though notably, here in the States, there's been a mixed reaction, let's call it. Right, you've got former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper seeming to be happy with the plea deal, saying that Assange has sort of paid his dues already, with one caveat, saying, I think another issue here, speaking on behalf of the intelligence community, is you can't have a system where people on their own unilaterally decide, well, I just think it's okay to expose all this classified information when they've made a commitment to protect it. That, to me, is a very important principle to bear in mind here. But again, where I began, I think justice is served. Though there, you have people saying, well, the issue is that Assange didn't make that commitment. Right, noting instead, Chelsea Manning had made that commitment before she leaked it to Assange, so he wasn't beholden to that standard. Which is also why we've seen civil rights groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation and its head of civil liberties say, the United States has now, for the first time in the more than 100-year history of the Espionage Act, obtained an Espionage Act conviction for basic journalistic acts. These charges should never have been brought. You know, with that, for years, the US has maintained that Assange and WikiLeaks went too far, saying they went beyond normal journalistic investigations, and arguing instead they put out information they knew would be dangerous to US service members and national security. But again, barring some sort of thing with the judge, Assange is headed home. Though his wife also claims even that's not going to be easy street, tweeting Julian's travel to freedom comes at a massive cost. Julian will owe $520,000, which he is obligated to pay back to the Australian government for the charter flight, saying he wasn't permitted to fly commercial flights and saying any contribution, big or small, is much appreciated. And then,
You'll trust me when I tell you that heart health is not something to mess around with. I mean, heart disease is way more common than some may think. You know, especially in recent years, I try to do all the things we're told to do to stay healthy. Everything from changing my diet to adding more cardio to getting better sleep. And with today's sponsors, Superbeat Heart Chews, I feel like I found a fantastic, tasty way to support my health goals. I mean, seriously, with just 2 tasty chews a day, you get your daily blood pressure support while promoting heart-healthy energy without the stimulants. Superbeats also help boost nitric oxide production, as well as help to reduce oxidative stress and damage, which is huge. When paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in Superbeats are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. And Superbeat chews make it easier for me to confidently maintain heart health matters, especially since they're small and I can take them on the go. I mean, it really couldn't be easier. And they're the #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended beet brand for cardiovascular health support. So double your potential with Superbeat Heart Chews. And you can get a free 30-day supply of Superbeat Heart Chews on all bundles and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and use code DeFranco. That's getsuperbeets.com. Code DeFranco.
And then, it's been 2 years since the Supreme Court killed Roe v. Wade. And as we get more distance day by day from that landmark decision, we're starting to see the real world impacts. With now one of the most shocking coming from a new study out of Johns Hopkins, right? And they looked at infant mortality in Texas, which is a state, by the way, that is home to 10% of all women of reproductive age in the United States. And the data showed that between March and December of 2022, infant mortality jumped 8% compared to just 2% for the rest of the country, meaning that there were 216 more deaths than expected during that time. With the main reason being that the state's 6-week limit on abortions, that's well before tests are done to detect fetal abnormalities, which is also why the number of babies born with birth defects in Texas spiked 23%. Meanwhile, there was a 3% decrease everywhere else. What makes those numbers even more disturbing is that many women know months in advance that their baby will likely or certainly die.
Knowing that your child is going to die and planning your child's funeral before your child's even here is insane.
But these women usually have to wait until their own lives are in immediate danger, like for example from an infection, before any doctor is willing to perform an abortion. And even then, the physicians are extremely skittish about it, because they know that they'll face life in prison if they accidentally run afoul of the law, which is why Texas only records about 5 abortions a month now, and that's also why a group of women who suffered serious complications during pregnancy sued the state, with them arguing that the law is just too vague about when an abortion is medically necessary. But there we saw the all-Republican state Supreme Court unanimously rule against the women less than a month ago. And a month before that, Florida's 6-week abortion ban went into effect, tightening its previous 15-week ban and closing off a major refuge for women in the South. Now, with that said, while the number of abortions in states with bans has plummeted to near 0, the average number nationwide actually hasn't changed according to estimates. In fact, if anything, it may have actually increased slightly in the year following the Supreme Court decision. And that because women are taking abortion meds through the mail or traveling to other states with looser restrictions. So that's not to say that the bans haven't stopped women from getting abortions that they would have. Right? In the 14 states where total bans are in place, one report estimates that there would have been 120,000 more abortions between July and September last year. With one of the biggest reasons a number of women haven't is that lots of people simply can't afford to travel because of the sheer distances involved. Right? Over 700 counties are more than 200 miles from the nearest abortion clinic now. And in southern counties, that number climbs above 700 miles. So 1, interesting and important information in its own right, and 2, it's going to be very interesting if this becomes a topic of debate come Thursday. Because yeah, if you are not aware because you've actively been trying to avoid it, which hey, I understand, the first Biden-Trump debate is set for Thursday. So, there's that. And then we've got to talk about what's going down in Israel, because their Supreme Court just made a big move. Because for those who don't know, over in Israel, military service is compulsory for pretty much all Jewish men and women, though the notable exception there being ultra-Orthodox Jews. Right? They've actually been exempt since the founding of Israel way back in 1948. Well, that's long been a source of tension, anger over the group's special treatment. It's only grown since the start of the war in Gaza. Right? Because while they've been studying the Torah, tens of thousands of reservists have had to serve multiple tours and hundreds have been killed. But now Israel's Supreme Court said, that's done, with the court's judges ruling that the country must begin drafting ultra-Orthodox Jewish men into the military. Writing these days, in the midst of a difficult war, the burden of that inequality is more acute than ever and requires the advancement of a sustainable solution to this issue. And with that, finding that the state was carrying out, quote, invalid selective enforcement representing a serious violation of the rule of law and the principle according to which all individuals are equal before the law. And then going even further to say that the government could no longer provide subsidies to religious schools if they enrolled students who should be doing their military service. And one of the big things here is that this represents a big problem for Netanyahu, right? Because what was once a small ultra